Stop making revenue your top measure of success. Start making client success your top measure of success.
Welcome back to Service First. I am Ben Wiggins, and I'm here today with Jay Rains. Jay, what's good today?
What's good? There's so much good today. The weather's amazing, but I have an amazing cup of coffee right now, Ethiopian, and it's killer. So I'm enjoying that.
Ethiopian coffee is the best. Like it's a little bit I'm not a coffee expert, but this always feels like a little bit mellower roast than the Colombian does. I don't know. Where'd you get it?
I got it. It's roasted by Polite. I picked it up at local Blue Baker, and so they had an Ethiopian. I picked it up. It's
cool,
really
man.
Nice.
Yeah. Are you a big coffee guy?
Yes. Yeah. My wife lovingly calls me a coffee snob, and because I'm just always looking for that edge on coffee, and just not the run of the mill, If I'm doctoring coffee, if it's not black, then it means I probably didn't like it.
Oh, okay. Have you been to our friend Beth Medley's new coffee company a few times?
I haven't. Is she open?
I thought so. They did the coffee
Okay.
at 1 million cups 3 weeks ago, I want to say it was.
Okay.
So they had their
way.
name on the thing, and what's the buzz was there as usual, but they had their coffee there
Okay.
too. I think her
No, I'm going to be their
husband.
number one customer. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
sounds good. All right, so icebreaker. What is the worst service failure you've ever seen?
So, this may not classify as worse, but it is definitely funny. I work with service organizations. We coach organizations. So looking back on this, it's funnier, but we were actually living overseas on the other side of the world. And so I guess I'd been there maybe a little too long because of my experience. So I went to a Subway, which we're glad to have Subway to be able to kind of have a little taste from home. And so I ordered a Subway sandwich, and they were, walking it through like they do and putting everything on it that I was asking for. And then all of a sudden, about halfway through making my sandwich, they have that kind of laid open, a fly lands on my sandwich. Right. I know it's my sandwich. He's building it for me. Right. And so the worker picks it up and blows away the fly off of the sandwich, and then finishes making my sandwich, and I ate it. so I don't know what that says about their service or kind of that culture. I love teaching about culture and how here's a Subway trying to represent Subway, and how that may or may not have been part of their normal practices, but also I was willing to accept the product. And so I just thought that was a funny kind of service breakdown.
What would
Yeah.
you what would you want that person to do? Would you want them to throw the sandwich away? Do you want to what's the right way to handle a situation like that?
Right. So, in that situation, I mean, it seems like they probably should have started over, but I didn't want to embarrass the person. I mean, they're learning. And so there was this cultural tension there with me and the situation of, I'm visiting this country. I don't really belong here, and I don't, I know how Subway probably would react in, where I'm from, but so I guess I just chose not to make an issue of it, and I laugh about that because now I realize, I was just kind of going along with the situation, and I had become accustomed to a different expectation.
Yeah. I'm wondering what if and I guess I feel like in the United States, the person they probably would start over. I guess I don't know what Subway's policy in the United States is on something like that. Um, Maybe they have one. Maybe they don't.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
don't
like as
know.
here's what I would do as the sandwich maker. I would probably shoo it away with my gloves, and then say, "What would you like me to do?" Because for me personally, I would do what you did. I would eat the sandwich, and yeah, it's like, yeah, I had a fly land on it and a person blew on it, and that's probably not super sanitary. But I hate waste so much that like so for me, I would actually rather the person just finish making the sandwich, even though it's a little gross, but I hate the waste even more. So I would ask, what do you want me to do? And if the person said just start over, I would start over. Um, but I don't know if there's a right answer though.
My family laughs about it. I don't know. My family laughs about it because I'm such a germaphobe, and I mean, there's the fly, and then there's him blowing on it, and it's just this whole funny thing of, well, I'm just okay with it, and so yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we laugh about it now.
Shifting gears, Leaders Q, you've obviously built a very successful business, and you can tell our audience a little bit more about what you guys do. But the question I want to lead with is, what drove you away from real jobs?
Yeah, and I appreciate that question. I know a lot of people jump into the entrepreneur world, kind of to get away from what quote unquote real job. I felt like I was more running toward something. It was I wasn't really running away from like a real job. It was more like I have an idea I'd really like to try, and this is a key moment in my life where I have an opportunity. Now, the cool thing was for us, my wife is a nurse. She has an amazing real job, and so she's my angel investor, and so we built the company on a shoestring and kind of start from zero. And so I had this long runway because of her real job to go and create jobs for other people. And actually, our role
And you
as
have. Thank you
Leaders
for
Q
doing
is to
that.
go in. Yeah, right. Awesome. And yes, and love the connection with you and your work, and even your family being part of our team. So um, the yeah, so actually we help people in their real jobs succeed, and that's been a lot of fun. So I really believe in the real job. There need to be entrepreneurs out there though, creating um, new ideas and implementing, and so I'm enjoying being a part of on that side of the equation.
Yes. Well, and I think, like, honestly, my interaction with Leaders Q, I mean, we have a couple of different interactions with Leaders Q, but and thank you for the family connection, of course, and thank you for being a client of Proclaims, of course, as well. But the what you're talking about highlights, I think some people don't understand necessarily the importance of the entrepreneur, not just in terms of the number of jobs that they're creating, but how that changes the dynamic of wages, for example. The entrepreneurial ecosystem creates value for consumers, but it also drives up wages. So the more people kind of shift to the other side of the seesaw, so to speak, the more it raises the need for laborers, for workers, and it raises wages. So thank you for doing that. That's
Yeah, I appreciate it. I maybe hadn't thought of it from that angle, kind of an economics angle. And you have an amazing economics background, of course. And so yeah, thanks for helping me see that side. I just love creating. I think, and I love working with people that want to be a part of a team. And so we've built a team that really enjoys what we do together, and then we also enjoy that client interaction where we're seeing them succeed, and our measure of success is their success. And so that's what drives me in this adventure.
Talk a little bit more about the creating aspect of, if you would. What is your favorite part of the creative process? And then I'll tell you my favorite part. I have two favorite parts, and then I have one least favorite part. But
The
what is it
creative
for you?
process.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I yeah, I like, I'm listening. Of course, with coaching, you're spending a lot of time listening and asking questions, trying to kind of engage, because they're the subject matter expert. I'm just coming along, asking questions and helping them think their thoughts and organize their goals and strategy. But along the way, we typically will run into a roadblock, run into a problem that's never been solved, or a problem that's not solved in this scenario, in this environment. And so that's where my creativity just locks in, and I'm like trying to figure out, okay, what's an image, what's a design, what's a way to tackle this problem. So that's been fun for me. I feel like creativity almost happens in the moment for me. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, that was really helpful for that person. How could I pull that and actually make that applicable and usable for a lot of people? And those are the creative moments that I've really enjoyed. So I don't know if that answers your question about creative process. It kind of happens to me, and then I have to step back and think, okay, how do I now tool that for everyone?
Can you give us a specific example of that, if you would?
Yeah. Here I am coaching, say, a CEO of an organization, and what I kept running into was this question of ownership. And we've developed several different, I would say about 13 different tools that help a leader help the people they're leading develop better ownership. And one example of that, just a real simple example, is people have read books like Extreme Ownership and other amazing like books about how to help your leaders take up more ownership in the business so that it's like off of my shoulders, right? And I know I can trust you with that kind of ownership. And so we were doing this in a coaching session, and it just came to my mind, and I drew a line for them. Sometimes I like to draw. So I just drew a line with two arrows in the end. Just think about a continuum that kind of goes forever in each direction. And then I drew a middle point, and I just put now, and then on the left I put past, and on the right I put future. So it's just this kind of now, past, future. And then we began to talk about the leader that they were trying to help in their ownership. And so we began to ask, okay, what kind of now, like right in the moment kind of leadership does this leader exhibit? And they started listing amazing things. They take over the shift, or they jump in there and they solve problems when they see them. They're just really great at now type leadership. And then we kind of made that level one ownership. And then we're like, okay, well, how do they own yesterday or the past or last week? And we started realizing this was an area where this leader was struggling. They would own some, maybe they wouldn't admit to everything. They wouldn't take ownership in that past space. And so then we said, okay, what would it take to get him not only to own now and the past, but also the future? And just in that 10-minute exercise, these questions I had for this leader, that has now become one of the most powerful tools we use in teaching ownership of like, okay, how do you help them go from level one ownership to then level two to then level three? What are the pitfalls on either side? I mean, it might end up being a book someday we call it the ownership timeline. And so again, we're bumping into a problem. How do we talk about this in simple terms that we can make very practical for my client? And all of a sudden, I'm like capturing this idea, like, man, everybody needs to hear this. And so I actually have I have a practice. I use a Moleskine kind of a journal to write my notes, and I'm always writing on the right page. So left page is always blank. So I'm writing my notes. But when something like that emerges, something that's kind of for everybody, I move to the left side of the page, and I'll make a note on that side. So then I can scan through quickly and capture all of my ideas that have come up in real life coaching and think, okay, this is something I ought to share broadly.
The Jacob Marley, leader of Christmas present, leader of Christmas past, leader of
There you
Christmas
go.
future.
That's it. Right. The Christmas carol of ownership.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
it.
What so that's a obviously a moment of significant success. What has there been a moment that was particularly hard for you as a leader? Like what was the hardest thing for you to read or hear as a business owner?
Yeah. So we've actually been in business for just over 7 years, and I think Yeah, I've really been thinking about this question. It's a tough question. I think the hardest thing for me to read or hear is just no. For someone to say no. I'm thinking about that in a lot of different situations. But as an entrepreneur, I mean, let's say I'm talking to a potential client, and I've written up a proposal, and we're really excited about that, and we go to them. There's kind of this risk ratio of, okay, what all do they really want? Let's make sure that we're dialed in, and to invest all that time into, say, a new client relationship, and then for them to come back with a no, it's really tough because I'm so invested. And so no, and then because no to me says we can't, and I'm over here going, no, we can. Like, there's so many yes we cans in this, but you're telling me no, we can't. And so I don't have an exact example for that. I just feel like it's something that I've actually had to learn. No is a good thing to receive. Like, I need to learn to receive no, because no's typically lead to a big yes somewhere else. Like, this wasn't the no. This wasn't the yes that I thought I was really after. There was a bigger yes out there, and this would have taken up space in my life, where now that no allowed space for me to say yes to this other bigger thing.
Hmm. So you're describing the transition then from thinking of the no as a door closing to no as a scalpel shaping, then? Is that?
Yeah, because in any no I receive, I'm evaluating, were we unclear about our message? Did we miss their need? And so it is a sharpening of, okay, how can we get better at talking to clients, or talking to new organizations that we want to work with, we're excited about working with, and making sure we're dialed in on that need gap that they're talking about, and that we're able to meet that need in a very clear way.
And then conversely, you shared a moment of creative success a few minutes ago, but from a business perspective, like what has been the most triumphant private moment? Or I could be a moment that you shared with the team, but often I feel like the biggest triumphs, the moments when we as leaders allow ourselves to express most freely, is when we're by ourselves. Was there a moment where you hung up the phone and jumped in the air, or laughed out loud, or saw something on an email and thought, this is why we're doing business? Like, what was the triumph for you? Is there something that springs to mind there?
Yeah, there is, and several come to mind. One that is a little bit more recent, within the last month. We had a client we were working with, and they were after and I can't share details about this, but just to kind of give you this picture, like, they're with a major brand. They're in a very prominent location that if I mentioned it, you would know where this location is. And they were trying to expand, to take on another location. And early last year, they were told, no, that's not going to happen. Man, that was
The
a gut
scalpel.
check. It was really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Yes, and it wasn't. It felt like my no, but it was a no to them. And but the triumph part of that was, I watched this leader's response, and how they reacted, and how they walked that journey through this last several months, most of last year, um, and things changed. Things came around. The climate changed, and actually, the the no that they received ended up. They came back and had another chance at it. And I think because of his response all that way, it gave him that second chance. And then just a few weeks ago, I got the call that it was a yes. And it was just this huge win for our team, for his team. And so we're excited for them. I hope to be able to tell that story a little bit more clearly in the future, when it's more public, but it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Seeing the way that you served this client, was there a service action that you were particularly proud of in helping them make that transition? And if there's not something that springs to mind from that story, like, has there been a service action that you have been particularly proud of with this client or somebody like them?
Yeah, I would say in this situation, and I had my team was helping with this too, and I was kind of leading the point on this particular interaction, this service that we were doing. And so what what I was really thankful and felt like privileged to be in the place of was to be there for this leader during that tough time. Because what I find over and over again is leaders when like entrepreneurs, CEOs, people who reach that top spot are often very isolated. There are just things that they need to talk about that they can't really talk about with their team, um, at least not yet. Maybe they need to process it and think through it. And so to be in that place of allowing grief, right? There was some grief in there, and kind of walking through and just recognizing, wow, this is painful, and walking that journey with them, and then um, to allow some of the, I don't know, some of the garbage to come out, in our conversations in a safe place, and prepare for a better conversation. I just was it was just a privilege to kind of walk that journey with this person, and then see them take these amazing steps and continue to invest and care and have a more of a what I call a victory story rather than a victim story. It's so easy to fall into a victim story that really you could tell the same story as a victor. And so he was able to live that victory story, and then actually happy ending, still got the victory.
Yeah. Yeah. That's does my heart good. Um, you and I are both pretty active on LinkedIn. Lead with the question, build your culture brand, like all of that. That you're doing a lot of stuff on there. Who's doing something you don't like to see? Like, is there? I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's maybe not as authentic. There LinkedIn influencers are now a thing. There's just a lot of stuff floating around out there. What would you like to see less of? What are trends developing that you don't like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all really despise the direct message selling. I mean, the most interaction I get on LinkedIn is people trying to sell to me something that I don't really need, and so that's frustrating. But I don't know that there's any one person or one activity that's a bone to pick, so much as I'm looking for authentic. And we're kind of dealing with this world of AI, and I appreciate the benefits I have from AI, but I'm I'm wary now. I feel like I'm constantly having to watch, is this true? What's real? And so I'm I find myself constantly questioning authenticity. And so when authenticity is there, it's really helpful. It's really powerful. And so I guess that's kind of a goal for me personally, is when I'm interacting, if I'm interacting with, you know, anyone, any of the networks that you or I have on LinkedIn, I want to be authentic, and I want what people see to be who I really am, as much as possible, and so authenticity.
You seem like a pretty authentic guy for the most part. Do you find that there are situations where you're more likely to drift into something that is inauthentic or less authentic?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I just, it's been really helpful for me to have a team around me, as if I'm filming even a little question, the question that I put out on Monday, um, and to make it, and this isn't so much about being authentic. I think that is kind of natural for me, but it's almost more like another step for, I want it to be practical and useful. And so let's say I put out a question, like I did on this Monday, and then what I do is I put out the question, then I'll put an application kind of explanation after the question. I just want to make sure that that application is something people can relate to. So maybe relatability is another step past authenticity, is to be relatable. Practical is another goal I feel like I have for LinkedIn is just be super practical.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure that serves you well. I I I find myself fascinated, holding the influencer stuff aside, holding aside the folks who have built up, followerships of, I don't know, 25,000 people or more. It's always fascinating to me what stuff is working and what stuff is not. And some things I can like, some things I look at and I say, I see the matrix here. Like I see the pattern that made this work. And some things I look at and either it's much more successful and I'm like, wow, why this one? Or something else that just has no reactions at all, no likes, no comments. And I think, wow, this one's really compelling to me. Why not this one? And sometimes I'm forced to acknowledge that maybe I'm the weird one, but other times, yeah, I don't know. Like I don't fully understand it yet. So, um,
That's why we've hired you to help us with our podcast. Yeah, that's why I proclaim, because you're looking at that. I don't know if maybe I don't spend enough time looking at that and figuring out how, how to make sure, and how these different things hit. Yeah, maybe, so thinking through those things is really important. Because you don't want to put a lot of effort into something that just kind of falls dead either. So yeah, what is that thing that's super authentic, super practical, and resonates with the audience? And so that can be challenging. I think we have to keep looking at that. And it changes. I think what maybe is working right now will be different in a few months.
yeah, only constant is change, like you said. Okay, final questions. So 10 words or less. What should people start doing in service or in business? What do people need to start doing?
Yeah, and I'm gonna match this with, kind of you're asking me what I'm going to start and then also what am I going to stop. And I think these two correlate together. So I'll put them into almost one answer. So I think we need to start measuring our success. If we're in the service industry, our success needs to be measured on their success. So look at your metrics. Stop making revenue your top measure of success. Start making client success your top measure of success. Several things happen there. And so I've gone beyond my 10 words. So I would say stop with the revenue target. Start with the client success target.
So then if you're trying to be really ruthless is not the right word, but if you're trying to boil that down to like if you're trying to make that into a KPI, do you adopt the client's KPIs? Like how do you then measure that for yourself? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's really challenging. I think so. One of the things that our team does is we help teams, and we're doing this for ourselves too, is divide the difference between a lag measure and a lead behavior. So a lag would be like revenue. That's an easy lag. It's very clear. It's hard numbers. You can easily measure it. Lags are typically the most true number and the easiest to read because they're in the past. So a lag is any metric that happens in behind you. So then I guess it's harder to know their KPIs and measure against that, but to measure more against what are the top 5 things that we know help our clients the best. Let's measure those. What's that short list of leading behaviors of, hey, if I do this for my client, it makes them more successful. It feels a little more anecdotal. It's really hard to measure, but I can go to bed at night every day knowing I did the leading behaviors. Whether or not the lag is going to follow that will be determined later.
Okay, so can you share any of the sauce? Like what are the most important leading behaviors that you guys measure, or what can you tell us about those?
Yeah, I mean, for example, in our business, we're coaching, say X hours a month for a team, and there are just some things that happen that need to happen in that coaching session, and we one of the things that we do is pull together every month, and we're retooling ourselves. We're teaching, and so just being a part of that that time together to iron sharpens iron, work with each other and help each other grow. But but aside from that, there are those billable hours that we have with our client. And then there are those other things that we do beyond those billable hours that also help our client. And so it might be that, for example, we have someone who's paying the bill for coaching for their team. They've got 5 people getting coaching, and we pull our team together, say some of the ones on that contract, and we meet with that leader, the top leader, and say, okay, how can we help your team? And these are not billable hours. We're not, but we're purposefully, like every quarter or half a year, sitting down with that leader and saying, what are the big targets that you're after? Help us make sure we're on track with your team, because we're meeting with your leaders individually, and we want to make sure that what we're seeing in these conversations are happening from your perspective, and let's get dialed in. So just that cadence of communication and relationship and communication and clarity is a leading behavior that we have we've adopted for our team.
And what's the measure of that is just the number of hours spent on it, or like how do you say, yes, we did enough of this, or no, we didn't do enough of this?
Yeah, I would say, from a leading behavior standpoint, it would be, did we do the thing? Did we do we have kind of a set list of questions we'll make sure we're asking? Do we have a good interaction? And it feels a little bit more subjective. So, but we can check the box. We did it, and we did it, with quality, with excellence. We won't know the result of that for maybe months or years, and that will show up in our long-term relationship with them, or our, whether or not they add other people into coaching. And so those are growth aspects that we can measure in the future, but it's the relationship building that matters. And so we want to make sure we're doing the leading behaviors for the lag result, and then we can watch the lag result.
Fantastic. What are your priorities for 2025, for the coming year?
This is an exciting year. I've actually in process of publishing a book. It's about a way for organizations to design the culture that they want. We're working with teams across the country. We've come to understand there's a method for a team to sit down and say, hey, we really want to behave this way. We want our whole team to act. We want this kind of culture, and we're able to help them kind of make that napkinable, where it's easy to describe, easy to follow, easy to explain. Hey, if you want to be a part of our team, here's what our culture looks like, and then processes of how to cascade that through the organization. So excited about getting that book published and doing some speaking and other opportunities, like being on your show here to tell that story. So we have a way, I call it a culture brand, that you can kind of brand your organization and make it to where everybody understands this is the culture that you've bought into, and we want to help you win by being a part of our culture.
Jay, how can our viewers follow what you're doing?
You can find our podcast show at buildyourculturebrand.com. So you can connect with me there or through LinkedIn. I'd love to get to know you better.
Thank you for your continuing trust and the continuing relationship. And thanks for taking your valuable time to join us today.
My pleasure.
On behalf of Proclaim, and on behalf of LeadersQ as well, I'm Ben Wiggins. Thank you, Jay Rains. And we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in, and keep watching this space.